So listen, everybody. As you can see, there are two divergent views. You know, one is clearly right, the other one is clearly drinking something once again, and
You'll be drinking your blood.
This is the Spinner Rack.
welcome everybody to Spinner Rack. I'm here with my boy Cal. How's it going, Cal?
Hey, ready to rock. Good to be back.
Today we're discussing Black Panther, whether or not it should have been nominated for an Oscar. There's, of course, some disagreement in certain quarters. Other quarters, there's no damn disagreement. They deserved it, sure as hell. So, Cal, give me your reasons why you think it shouldn't have gotten nominated for an Oscar.
I just don't think that it was an Oscar-worthy film at the end of the day. I mean, look, was it entertaining? Without a doubt. Did I have a lot of fun? Sure. Okay, but to be quite honest, I think this is a lot more about Oscar so white or hashtag Oscar so white, and less about the the qualities of the film. I think this is just cover for the Oscars at the end of the day.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think that the film brought quite a lot to the stage. I mean, first of all, the box office is bonkers, and I know, of course, the Oscars doesn't always do that, but the very fact that the characters, the actors, were able to convey these characters so truthfully, so well. Then on top of that, you have the production design, the whole look and feel of this film. I mean, were just tremendous. And lastly, you also have had other films such as Forrest Gump and Titanic, which were commercially successful, which were also, I guess, culturally hit a cultural nerve with the audience out there, and were also nominated for these type of films.
Yeah,
so I don't see this as
That's a good soft step. But I mean, you have films like The Matrix, and The Matrix revolutionizes the way people did movies in terms of the action sequences, okay, in terms of the cinematography. And this was also something that had, definitely was culturally relevant. They could have done that with Mission Impossible, the first Tom Cruise movie, for all of that. Those films that you mentioned, Forrest Gump, Titanic, they are culturally relevant. They also go a little bit further, okay, as opposed to just being something from the movie that people like to emulate or everybody liked it. So when we say these lines again, because everybody's seen the film and everybody knows it, there's something, they go a step further. A step further in not just being culturally relevant, but making themselves a part of the culture. That is something that those films were able to do. Now, Black Panther, okay, hey, I just didn't see it that way. I saw this was a great film. A lot of people liked it, and there were things that you could extrapolate off of it, but not to the extent of those films. Definitely not Forrest Gump, which I think got more into the whole. I think that got more into the fabric, of the overall culture here in the States than either Titanic or Black Panther did. And again, this is a different time period, so it might be easier for a film like Forrest Gump to get into like the cultural fabric here than a film like Black Panther. But the biggest thing that, again, for me, the biggest thing is I look at a film like Black Panther. I look at a film like Infinity War. Infinity War didn't get any nods. Okay, Black Panther did. And there is no way on God's green earth that anybody can tell me that Infinity War was not, okay, an equal film in terms of execution, in terms of story, in terms of acting, direction, that Black Panther was. And so for me, and it's a concerning thing for me too, the big thing that I'm seeing is, okay, this right over here, we're gonna kill 3 or 4 birds with one stone. Okay, we're gonna nominate a film that's very popular and people are gonna like it. We're gonna cover our backside from this hashtag Oscar so white, so we won't have to hear about that. And then, of course, once we've covered ourselves, we can always go back and say, hey, look what we did with Black Panther, and then we can just go about business as normal or business as usual at the end of the day. And do we get to see more films of this nature? Do we get to see more films of this nature? Because a lot of times it becomes, you don't want it in waves, okay? We don't want waves. We don't want this big rush that comes over, it spreads over everything, and then what happens? It recedes, it dries up, and it goes right back to the way that it was before. And that's the concern.
Kyle, you've given quite a lot of stuff you covered. One, you covered the whole thing about whether or not the movie is good, compared to the Infinity War. And of course, that's a very subjective decision. There's people who are going to say this is better as opposed to that's better. So I'm not going to fight you on that one. But I think that you can also look back at the Oscars. Times have changed. There have been so many action and film, superhero movies in the time that I think the whole Academy has moved on. I mean, let's admit it. At one point, it was a much older crowd. They've made it a much younger crowd, a much more relevant crowd. And of course, the Oscars has always been subjective. It's just like all of these award shows. It depends on who you have in the room and who's part of your group. Each group is exclusive to a particular degree. The Oscars includes everybody who makes the film, while the Screen Actors, only the actors, or the Directors Guild Awards. So it really depends on a whole bunch of different factors. So one, I think that time has changed. It's just like at one point when Westerns were looked down upon as movies, because they were all poppy. But as time went on, people started saying these things are really serious films. They have some serious messages, and they started treating it. I think this is an opening salvo. When you have Black Panther, a superhero film coming out, I think that's now going to open the gates for other superhero films that are made well and also resonate with the audience to do well. Hey, it may be Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War Endgame next year. We'll see. Another point you made was that whether or not the film was, what was that? You said the film was not as strong compared to Forrest Gump and Titanic.
Didn't get into the cultural fabric.
Yeah, but I kind of disagree. I think it does. When you go down the street and you see a young girl say Wakanda Forever, or when you see kids wearing the mask at all the stores, when it's the #1 Halloween costume, when it's the #1 home video, when it's the #1 movie, I mean, it's gotten into enough of a fabric of a lot of people to see what's going on. Now, when you talk about, another thing you have to look at is that the actors, whereas this is an ensemble, and it's hard to pinpoint. Yes, it was supposed to be Black Panther, but the reality is this turned out to be more of an ensemble film, as opposed to Forrest Gump, where you have just one lead character, Tom Hanks, who was already, I believe, an Oscar winner at the time, and is considered one of the grand dons of Hollywood. I mean, this is somebody who's liked by Hollywood, someone that people, and who picked a very good film to highlight his acting powers. So yeah, I think that's scary. And then you have Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, where they were in Titanic. And the director, what was the director's name again?
James Cameron.
James Cameron, who did Avatar. One of the more celebrated directors in Tinseltown. People love also. So
yeah, Avatar is another film you can throw in there, as it was Oscar nominated as well.
Yeah, Oscar nominated. So what I'm just trying to say is that there's many more factors than just alone that just because they're a black cast. I think there was a lot of things going on here that you're like, wow, this really blows things away. The way things looked, the very fact that these guys had to learn. If you listen to the making of the film, how they had to learn the vernacular of each of them, of the particular group that they were representing, and the colors, and there was a lot of time spent in this, and I got to respect that for them. It's just because they are black? No, this was a good movie. If it was a bad movie, and I would have tell you, we've seen bad movies, even though they represent African Americans. I'll tell you, but this was definitely a pretty good film, and I think that it deserves. Whether it deserves to win, it's a whole nother level, another thing. But should it be included as one of the best films of the year? Yeah. Historically, I thought the Oscars have been they've missed the boat on quite a lot of very good films. A lot of films like you pointed out, like Avatar, like
The Matrix.
The Matrix. Those are films that should have been nominated, and probably could have gone on to win, but they haven't. But I think the good thing is what we're seeing now is the Academy is finally moving forward, not just on them, but in respecting that, hey, this is an art form. All that CGI, yeah, but people have to act the damn thing out. You know what I'm trying to say? So I regretfully disagree with you on that.
Look, when I look at Black Panther, it reminds me of a film like Gladiator or Braveheart, where these are films that I went and enjoyed, and these aren't films that I think would normally be nominated for Oscars. Okay, I've been able to revisit Braveheart or Gladiator, for years now, because I always used to ask, why the hell was Gladiator nominated for an Oscar? Why was Braveheart nominated for an? And I just liked them because it was fighting, it was all this other. But then I looked back on them, I was like, okay, I see now why they were nominated, because I looked at what the films were that year. And then I look at these films, and I was like, this is just a solid film from start to finish, okay? In terms of story, in terms of direction, cinematography, this is a solid film. These are more like meat and potatoes type films at the end of the day, okay? They're solid, very short on frills, okay? Very short on, fireworks, but incredibly solid films at the end of the day. So I could easily put Black Panther, okay, in that same category, with the exception that Black Panther also has a very good piece of competition in the form of Infinity War, which was completely ignored in terms of the nomination. These two films, I can understand if these two films were going neck and neck at the end of the day, because they were like, wow, this was an excellent superhero film, and this was an excellent superhero film. Black Panther seems to have gotten a whole bunch of love, okay, a whole bunch of love at the end of the day, where Infinity War was, okay, great. Hey, you guys had nice costumes, okay, and that'll be the end of it. And so I sit there and I'm juggling. I'm like, what did this other film have that this one didn't have? Could it be?
Did it help? I'm not saying it didn't help. And you know what? You make a good point there. But I think, the same studio that made Black Panther made Infinity Wars, right? And I think Disney had a choice to push which movie did they really want to push and which one did they think would have a better chance of winning. And I think they decided to put their eggs.
I'm going to brass tacks this. I'm going to ask you straight away, okay? Do you think, okay, one, Oscars, Oscar already being leaned on, okay, by all these SJW groups that they're so white, okay, and the fact that Black Panther was not only a successful film, okay, I'll even give you a culturally relevant film because it is.
Yes.
Okay, because this is a film with an all-black cast set in Africa, all the other stuff that goes over, and of course, can this film succeed? We all know it can. It just needed the right time, the right production, the right people behind it. But do you believe that had anything to do with the fact that it's gotten so many nominations, okay, out of the Academy Awards?
I think it does. I think, one of the things I think that helped is that Wonder Woman came out last year and they got snubbed. And they were like, hey.
Yeah, rightfully so. That was a mediocre film.
Whether mediocre film or not, that also had a cultural impact because no one had ever made a superhero film of a woman and had been successful, right? Has there been one?
You're talking about financial success.
Right, but
there have been successful female superhero films.
Like?
I have to go into them now. No. Let's go.
So, but the point of the matter is that a lot of people felt that film was overlooked by the Oscars also, And so this film here is, they've changed the way the Oscars was. At one point, the statistics were, I think the average member was over like 65 years old.
Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what was the successful female superhero film? But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, so it makes a difference as to who's looking at the movies. I mean, someone who's 65 is going to say, hey, or I'm not saying most 65-year-olds, probably they do, but some of them are going to say, I'm not interested in this type of film. I'm more interested in a more artsy film. And the very reality is that, most people don't.
But that undercuts the argument, though, because see, if it's culturally relevant, okay, it can't just be culturally relevant for young people. Cultural relevance is across the board. That's why it gets into the fabric of the culture.
I disagree because you have, you
saying like 65-year-old people are what? They're dead? They don't go to movies?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just
they
saying
can't do this? Come on.
I'm saying they have a different taste or a different like. There's nothing wrong with that. There's probably a bunch of people who saw Infinity War and Black Panther, But they may see, for them, probably, sandals and swords, maybe something more of their take. Or it may have been like Avatar when it came out. They're like, I'm not watching this BS with aliens flying around. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but then the cultural relevance works that you go to see it. You go to see it because everybody else has saw it. People are talking about it. That perks your interest. And you're like, you know what? Let me go see this film because everybody else is talking about this. I'm curious about it now. I would like to see it for myself.
Let me ask you a question here, Kyle. Have you watched the last 3 Oscar Best Picture winners?
The last 3 films?
Yeah. Shape of Water.
I watched Shape of Water. I also saw, was Moonlight a winner?
Moonlight was a winner.
God, I saw Moonlight. Horrible film.
And I forgot the last one. But I'm just saying, just the last 2, no one went out to watch most of them.
I didn't care for Shape of Water. Yes, okay.
I saw Shape of Water.
I don't know how the hell Shape of Water. See, Oscar, I understand how the Oscars works. Right. Years ago, did you ever see The English Patient?
Yes, I did.
My God. Okay, so it was a friend of mine, and we both thought, let's go see an Oscar-nominated film, because we don't usually go to see that. We always see, popcorn movies and shoot 'em up.
Exactly.
And that. So we sat through that, and when it was over, we were like, wow, that was a really dumb film at the end of the day.
Depressing,
but
I thought.
It won the Oscar. And that's when I realized, these guys who are nominating these films, they're not like me and my friends at the time. They don't see one movie on the weekend or during the summer. They see films all the time, okay? They must see dozens, if not maybe even hundreds of films every year, and they're so inundated by it, and they see people trying to do the same stuff over and over. They can recognize this, they can recognize that, to the point that a lot of times the nominations are for films that aren't necessarily great. they're just different.
Right.
Okay, this guy actually tried to do something different, and the execution wasn't enough there. They're like, yeah, okay. It's like, you ever watched one of those movies or those shows where the guy comes in and he throws some spaghetti on the wall or something, and everybody's like, hey, he threw spaghetti on the wall. And it'd be that one guy, the art critic, and he's like, no, the texture, the color, this is magnificent, magnificent.
Yes.
Along those lines. So you get that. I get that from the Oscars, where they're like, okay, a lot of those films, Shape of Water was also supposed to be like this undercurrent talking about, marginalization, victimology. So there was that in it.
Wasn't the guy from the Black Lagoon? That's what I got from it.
The creature from the Black Lagoon.
He came to Earth, had a relationship, and
dude, it was weird, man.
I know, but hey, that's
the best part of that movie. The best part of that movie was the nudity. Okay, that got me. I was like, okay, maybe there'll be some more nudity. Because aside of that, I was like, I don't see what else is going. There's really just not a lot going on for me right here.
It was an interesting relationship. I'm not going to deny what was going on, but I'm not into
the political stuff in there. See, the political stuff in there is so fist in your face. It's like, what am I, stupid? I was like, you couldn't do it becomes okay. We're going to acknowledge this because one, it's a bit different, and two, it also covers the political stuff, and we want to be seen as politically relevant over here at the Oscars, so we'll nominate that particular film. So I saw that right over there. Moonlight, I thought, suffered along the same lines because, again, this is Oscar, hashtag Oscar so white.
But that was before Oscar so white.
No. This is afterwards. Okay, because Moonlight this is after they were getting that backlash, which again, I'm sort of like, hey, if it was 1 year and there was not one film that won that had any white people in it, everybody would say, yes, we've arrived. Yes, we've arrived. If it was 1 year, there was no white people whatsoever, yes, we arrived. Like, white people are not part of the diversity at the end of the day. So,
but they are. I mean, and I agree with you there. I think that there's a backlash that people want just all black class or just all white.
People they're being selfish. They just want for themselves. It's a power grab through the Oscars.
But that's also the thing. Let's reflect what society is, and the same thing goes with the Oscars. Let the guys who are judging it reflect who the society is.
That's
Rotten Tomato.
That's not film, and that's not
Why is it not film?
That's not art. At the end of the day, art is supposed to be you have an idea. Okay, and through painting, through film, through music, through literature, you express that idea. It's not so that your idea needs to include everybody else. No, bringing your idea out is supposed to be the tantamount thing at the end of the day.
And I agree with you to a degree. But the problem with that though is that sometimes you have only one particular idea out there, and you're like, wait a second. I go outside and I hear Hindi music, or I hear Asian music, and I hear Haitian music, and I'm like, wow, and these are all hits other places, and why are they not resonating here? You go to the clubs, they're doing well.
Because our music, the music of the United States, resonates everywhere.
Right,
it's not local music. Okay, we have the popular music art form of the world.
But what I'm trying to say, if you just look at the music sometimes, it doesn't necessarily correlate with the people that you see on screen. So you see all these rappers, there's not, when you look at rappers and R&B singers, you're not having 40% of the chart being dominated, or 30% of the chart dominated by people who only represent 13% of the population. You know what I'm trying to say? What about Latinos? You don't hear their music, so it's like they're zero. It has to be representative to a point where you include everyone.
Nah, that's not art. That's
is art.
That's not art. That's demographics. No. That's playing the numbers. They're trying to get people in seats. That's why when you see films like The Avengers and they're set in Nairobi, okay, or they're doing something over here in Tibet or in China or something of that nature, that's to draw in those particular markets because they're trying to get their way in there, and they want that international money. That's why Aquaman has made $1 billion, because they know good and well in the States, they were like, nobody's gonna pay $1 billion to see this crap. Okay. So we're going to go over here. And in Tibet, they're going to be like, oh, the Aquaman. Oh, we've never seen this before.
It's such a small market, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
For example, I'm just trying to think of something remote.
What I'm saying is that there's more out there. There's $1 billion. Now, what you're doing now with Asian markets, you're saying, hey, I have to cater to the Asian markets because there's $800 million that I can be getting out there. Where before, I didn't have to care about that.
And that's catering.
And that's where to pay, but that's okay.
You've got the right word. That's catering. That's ensuring your money. But that's not art.
It's the same thing here in New York, where they want to cater to a particular audience. I have no problems with that. I'm saying, look, there's a lot of different points of view, a lot of different great ideas. There's a lot of great stories that need to be followed up and dealt with. And that's also art. You know, when you only have one, this is art can only be such and such, and it can only be judged by a certain group of people. That's not art. That's not cool. Anybody can do whatever you want. You know, when they had the artists who were doing the graffiti, people were like, oh, that's horrible.
Look, award shows are not about expressing art or even necessarily acknowledging art. Okay,
What are they? It's just a little club telling people what they think is best.
Yes, but at the same point, these people who want the Black Panther to be successful to the point like, no, your little exclusive club, okay, that we think is ridiculous and doesn't acknowledge that, we want you to acknowledge this film right over here because you've given them that much power. Okay, you're giving them that much importance. If the Black Panther was never nominated for a single award, would that make it a less